This podcast is brought to you by On Track Studio.
Hello and welcome to the Natural Birth Co podcast. I am pumped to have you here today and super excited to introduce you to Jacquie. I feel like you guys are just going to love Jacquie. She's an amazing NBC mama and did our yoga, did our birth workshop, and 7 months after her birth experience, we are finally here telling her amazing story. So I'm really intrigued and I've been very much waiting out for this story because I really wanted to share with you Jacquie's experience in having an epidural and how she had an amazing positive experience with an epidural. And I just think these types of stories are really important to share because we can often think these small things that are off our birth preferences are worst case scenario. And we can often feel a lot of fear and feel very afraid towards, in our perception, this worst case scenario. And it's wonderful and great if your birth preferences doesn't include an epidural or an induction or whatever it is. However, if it does end up needing to happen, isn't it so relieving when you know that your worst case scenario for you isn't actually that bad? Whenever I'm doing something big and scary, and I'm going into it and we can have this subconscious just going crazy that, gosh, if this doesn't go to plan, I am fucked. And you just think like worst case scenario, it's like I'm going to die. But when you actually can label it and you can acknowledge, okay, the worst case scenario is that this thing happens. I really embarrass myself. I stutter. I completely faint on stage or whatever it is that's scary to you for your guys' circumstance. Birth is the scary thing. And you can label the worst case scenario. Okay, worst case scenario, get an epidural. Worst case scenario, get a cesarean section. And you actually know what that can look like. It really diminishes the power of that fear. And this is something that we practice a lot with our Natural Birth Co mamas in yoga and in our workshop, is really naming the fear, calling it by its name, and actually acknowledging it. When it is just wreaking havoc in our subconscious, it is always so much worse than what it actually is. What the actual fear is usually not as bad as what we think it is. So in Jacquie's case, an epidural was the worst case scenario before birth. After birth, it's actually the thing that made her birth experience a positive and beautiful experience that she had. And I just loved her mentality towards it as more so as an overarching theme. And for Jacquie, it happened to be about the epidural. But I'd really love for you to potentially put yourself in Jacquie's shoes and see this experience and this perception and this mentality in your own shoes, to your own experience. So anyways, I've just fully tangented on like a life philosophical talk here. But that's my thoughts. Enjoy the story. Hey, Jacquie, welcome to the potty.
Hello.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I have been so excited for this podcast since you told me that you birthed because you had a very interesting story.
Yes, I had a wild journey.
And still is by the sounds of it. From bloody 3 months.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been
amazing.
Crazy from the word go. I wouldn't expect anything less, to be honest.
Yeah, fair call.
Yeah.
From your baby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
From
absolutely.
me or my baby.
Absolutely.
I think everyone's like, here's a product of you. So
your mum's like, you're welcome. Yes.
Yeah.
This is what you were like.
Yeah. Just pass down the genes. I'll break this cycle.
Yeah.
What a crazy child.
So true. So I wonder whether we should start, because I'm actually intrigued on this and I don't actually know. When did you realize that you wanted to have a baby?
Oh, when I was 7.
Yeah. Fair call.
Yeah,
so you've always known.
I've wanted to be a mum since I was playing with dolls as a little girl, like always.
Amazing.
It's been something that I have always grown up wanting. I've worked with children. I wanted to be a teacher. Then I worked in early childhood. Then I did swim teaching, like always in the field of young children, and babysat all of like my teachers' children, things like that.
Amazing.
So, yeah, I really have always had an affinity for caring for children and wanting to be a mother.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so then how did you go about that experience of becoming a mama?
Well,
what was the thought process?
I think in my mind when I got to I think I was 30 and in a relationship, and I was like, okay, this is good. I'll have a baby soon. Yeah. And then it didn't happen. The relationship ended, and I was like, right, if I haven't found somebody by 35, I'm doing it by myself. And it was just, I kind of organically just happened, and I think I was 34, and I was like, if I don't do this, I'm just going to keep thinking about doing it. So I just rang a fertility clinic and said, what do I have to do? And it was so much more intense than I thought. It was like, there's a 3-month cooling off period. You've got to have psychologist appointments to make sure you're ready. And so I didn't realise it was going to be probably quite so involved in just getting to the point of having a baby.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy, it's so easy for some people, so hard for others. But, yeah, there's a lot of boxes to tick off when you go through donor conception. I went through the fertility clinic on the Sunshine Coast, and I went for my psychologist appointment, and then I had a 3-month cooling off period. And then it's just like, it was kind of an interesting way to do it, because it's just like a checklist. Like, you're going through the motions to get to the end goal. So it's just like, that box is ticked, that box is ticked, that paperwork's signed, that's done, that's submitted. All the testing, like genetic testing that you have to get done. So
really?
Yeah, so to get it,
that's surprising.
Yeah, it's I guess it's to more like assure them that it's going to be successful, just because they test the donor sperm, and then they test you for any genetic incompatibility. Yeah. So you've got more of a chance of it being successful, or if there's any like carrier genes for both sides that will be a problem.
Yes.
So it's interesting there's any people, like any living human has come out normal with the amount of things that you have to go through for IVF to make sure that it's going to be okay.
Yes.
I was like, how are people accidentally having such healthy children? Because why do I have to go through all of this if all of these children are being born so easily,
I know what you mean. Yeah. Although that's interesting, because Lockie and I have actually talked about that, where if we wanted to have babies one day, we would see if we had any of those incompatibility or carrier genes that, when put together, they create, some sort of issue in the child or something. Yeah. And I don't know whether that's like medicalizing the whole process, but I feel like it can really like decrease your chances of.
So many people don't think to do that.
No,
So many people, and then they have like early miscarriage or all these problems that you don't understand the reason behind it, I guess.
Yeah.
And so my cousin, for example, she got tested with her partner, and she realised that she's got all of these problems genetically. Yeah. That she now needs to do IVF to have a child. It's sad, but also good, because when she did it, I was like, why are you doing that to yourself? Like, you can easily do it naturally. Yeah. She's a nurse, so she was like, I really want to know more, and good on her for doing it, and kudos to her.
Yeah.
Because she's going through the IVF process now, and she wouldn't have had that opportunity if she didn't have that foresight to do the genetic testing. But I was like, give me the bare minimum. I don't want to know if I've got a disease that's going to kill me in 20 years. I want to know if I've got something that I'm going to pass on.
Yes.
I'm not the kind of person that would be very inclined to know. Mm-hmm. Like, when people are like, do you want to know how you're going to die or when? I'd be like, I don't want to know either.
Or neither.
But, like, that's what I thought the genetic testing would kind of bring up. Like, you've got these problems that you didn't know. So I just got the bare minimum done. Mm-hmm. And it came back all good. I didn't have really anything that was negative with... I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't have anything that was going to come up and be
perfect.
And then, so the next step was like, you get this folder. I was like, do you get a folder of people to choose from? Like,
I was going to say, how does that go?
In my mind,
it's like online shopping or something.
I'm expecting like this huge big folder with hundreds of people to choose from. And there's no Australian. The clinic I went through is all overseas donor sperm.
Yeah.
So they are based in America. And it was all online, and one of them had just a list of names and like character traits, and then the other one had a website with children, like photos of them as a baby, and then some of them had adult photos, and they're all ID disclosure, so when the child gets to 18 they can find out who the donor is.
Wow.
Yeah, so I went with the one that I could see the baby pictures, and it was like Tinder for donor sperm. I was like, oh, I can see what you look like.
Swipe right,
you can see what they like. That is what it was like. It was like a little scroll, but also the ones that were available to Australians were, so there was like 500 on the website donors, and then the ones available to Australia, there was about 30.
Why?
And I was like, I don't know. They don't send them all over here. Maybe because the donors don't agree to it, or
wonder why. Really, if anything, like kind of. Actually, I don't know. I have no idea. I was going to say further the better, because then it's like, you know, you're not accidentally going to cross paths or make babies with someone else and then they meet, like less likely. But I don't know. Yeah. I would have no idea on how they would feel.
me, I don't know how they do it, but I'm glad that they do. But so the ones that went to Australia, generally they donate to 40 different countries, but they can only have a cap of 25 to 30 families around the world. It was, and I think in hindsight, when I first saw the list, I was really disappointed, because I was like, 30 to choose from doesn't seem many, and there was a lot on there that I wasn't drawn to for whatever reason. And in my mind, I've got really bad family history of melanoma, so I was like, I want a darker skinned person to kind of like balance out my really terrible family skin genes. I was like, I want to give this kid a chance in the Australian sun.
Let's change the story.
I was like, I'm not doing this for a child, like passing this white person gene on in this sun. Like, it's terrible. So I really wanted an African American or darker skinned person. And there was only 2 African American donors on this website, and I was like, wow, like I really expected there to be more.
Yeah.
And then I emailed them and they said, no, that donor's not got any vials left. And that was the one that had my heart set on. And I was like, damn, like what am I going to do now? Because I was like ready to go.
Yes.
And I felt like I'd waited for 8 months or something from the start of the process. And I was ready to go. I'd had my egg collection. Yeah. So I just needed the sperm now. And I kept looking at the website, and I remember I was on the treadmill at the gym one morning at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I looked at it and I was like, I'm just going to send them an email because he's still on the website. And I was like, hello, I just want to know about this guy. Like, why is there any chance that there's any vials? And the lady was like, we've actually just had 2 vials come back. And I was like, I need them. Like, please, can you put them aside for me? And so she put them as a reserve for me. And then I had to do all the paperwork to get the payment sent across and, like, make sure with Monash that he was available to enough families in Australia for me to get him. Wow. So it was a really nervous, I think it took 3 weeks to make sure that I'd secured. And I kept emailing her. I was like, hello, her name was Munro. Like, hello, Munro, I'll never forget her name. Hi, it's just me
Don't
again.
you dare give those files away.
Please don't sell those files. Like, I really want this guy.
Yes.
And
good on you.
So it worked. They sent them to Australia, and then I think it took like 3 weeks to send them to Australia.
Fantastic.
So,
fantastic.
Crazy. And then,
what else did they include in that profile? So their like genes or their medical.
Yeah. So I have
history.
like his whole family history from like his aunts, cousin, maternal, paternal, grandparents.
Wow.
All of his details, basically what he liked to do as a child. He wrote a letter to, like, just to say why he was doing it and what, like, about him. He does a little video of himself, speaking, and then he's got, what else is in there? There's adult photos, child photos.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So, and you could hear him they did an interview with him, so you could hear his voice and like him talking. And I was like, I could sit down and have a conversation with him. Like, I really thought that's a guy that I would be able to actually get along with in real life. Like, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Tinder, swipe right. Is that the way you swipe?
I actually don't know. Isn't there one that you could like extra like oh yep, definitely save him?
I don't know, but that's what I did. I was
fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, he was
because you just never know, right? Like if your paths will cross in the future because you know your child will choose
when he's
whatever.
18 I could meet him. I was like, wow, that could be a very interesting meeting. But I don't want to have to sit down with someone
with a muppet.
Some trailer trash. Come to my trailer. Meet you at my trailer. Yeah.
What was his reasoning that he explained for donating?
He had friends and I think a sister that had trouble conceiving, and he just said that it was drawn to it, drawn to helping people out. He just wanted to help people.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So cool. So cool. Okay, so then the sperm got sent to Australia.
Yeah.
And do they put the sperm and the egg together and then they put
after
it
my
in?
egg transfer, they put... Actually, I must have organised the sperm right before. I think it was like a week it got here before I had my egg collection.
Ah, okay.
So I had my egg collection and then they did the mixing in the Petri dish straight away.
Yeah.
And I ended up with... So I got hyperstimulated, and they took 30 eggs out of me. Wild numbers. But like 8 were immature, and then I think 15 survived. Like 15 were good for... Combining.
Insemination?
Thank you.
Is that it?
What is the word? Like, why do I keep doing this?
I want to say this, but I'm not confident about it.
So 15 were good for insemination, and then 6 survived to day 5 blastocyst.
Oh.
Yeah, which is pretty good numbers, really.
Great.
Yeah, I was pretty happy about that.
Amazing.
I also tried to go to lunch after my egg collection and ended up in hospital.
Oh, my gosh.
Passed out in the bathroom.
Shit.
Yeah. I don't really know what happened, but because I was a bit hyperstimulated, it was all just... I only had the green whistle for my egg collection.
Oh.
And it was fine. Like, I couldn't feel...
What do they go through the vagina, through the cervix, into the uterus, into the ovary?
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking gnarly. Only the
Where
green
the
whistle.
follicles sit?
The follicles, I'm sure, are in the ovaries.
Yeah, I do know about this, but yeah, so they go and they like inject in, they like suck out every individual follicle on both sides.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so and like
it's
some
just
of them
interesting
have eggs,
though, because I guess inside, like, we don't have heaps of nerve endings. We do have some, which is why, we can experience cramps, but it's just crazy to think that can go inside you and not cause pain.
I could feel it.
Yeah.
It felt tight, but it didn't feel painful. I was sitting there saying to the lady, like, why don't more people get the green whistle? Like, I don't understand. It doesn't hurt. Why are people going on to general?
People get scared.
Yeah. But it was fine. Well,
I was thinking I was a boss for getting my IUD with nothing, but
I sucked the green whistle too hard. That is my problem, because that is why I got sick. I had way too much green whistling. I was like sucking. I was like, why don't people have these for festivals? And the nurse was like, "Oh, this girl, get that off her." I was like, "This is great." So yeah, it was all a lot. I went out for lunch, passed out in the toilet. Ambulance had to come. It was an ordeal. And then, but I went home that night. And
any idea what would have caused this? I did get my eggs extracted today, and so had a whole green whistle.
I had to get tested for like hyperstimulation at the hospital. So they were like, "Go home and rest. Like, you don't need to be going out for lunch. Just relax." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah,
I just need a sandwich. I just kept saying to them, "I'm just hungry." Like, I just need, because I hadn't eaten. Yeah, because you can't eat. Anyway, so yeah, got that. They did the insemination and 6 embryos, and then I had to, because I got hyperstimulated, I had to wait a month to have I had to get a frozen transfer because I couldn't get a fresh one because I got hyperstimulated.
Oh.
Yeah. Once you get hyperstimulated, your body isn't ready. Essentially, they don't think it's going to be you can get it, but I think because of the drugs that they use, it's not very successful in implantation. So I had to wait, which I was really disappointed with at the time because I was like ready to go. And then they were like, "No, it's okay. You can just wait a month. Your body will be more ready. Like, you can cleanse yourself of all the hormones that you've been on for the last 3 months."
Oh, so you've been on hormones
I was
during
injecting
all this?
like needles.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, for the whole lead up, which knocks a lot of people around. But I feel like I personally felt like I dealt with it well. I think other people thought I was maybe a bit touchy. But I was like, "Oh, I'm fine." Like, I've seen some other people really have a hard time, and I surprisingly did pretty well with that.
Cool.
And so I waited the month, and then they did the transfer, and I found out on my birthday that it was successful. I wasn't meant to do I'm like, I'm peeing on a stick. Like,
it's my birthday. I'm going to do what I want.
Yeah, I was like, I will find out. I can't wait. So I did the naughty thing and peed on a stick and found out. But I was like, best birthday present.
So do they put it in, like, not necessarily when you're ovulating because you don't need an egg?
Yeah, so I had to have a trigger shot. So they know exactly within a 24 window when your egg is going to, when your hormones are going to be at the right. I was like, your egg's not dropping. So maybe that wasn't. Yeah, when your hormones. So they give you the trigger shot so that your body is in the right state for the implantation.
And is that like what day of your cycle, you reckon?
They gave me the trigger shot at day 14.
14, yeah.
The same kind of...
Because you don't necessarily need the egg, but you still want like the beautiful uterine lining and stuff for the follicle to attach to.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they were doing. So
Fascinating.
Yeah, so it's basically a drug stimulated cycle, like completely normal cycle.
Yeah.
So they at ovulation give you the trigger shot, and then literally scientifically 24 hours later they put you in the chair and do the transfer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed because my fertility specialist didn't make it. So the nurse was like, I'm doing the transfer. And I was like, are you allowed to do these? Like, this is one of the biggest moments of my life. You're just the nurse. But kudos to the nurse. She got the job done.
She got the job done.
Like, I'll go back to the nurse.
Good on her.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So it was the first time. So lucky.
Fantastic.
There's so many people that are so not as fortunate as that. But
yes.
Yeah, for me, it was
First go. That is very rare. Although, in saying that, most people who get IVF, it's because they're having fertility difficulties, whereas you probably didn't.
Oh, no. I don't think.
You just need the sperm.
Yep. Yeah,
Done.
Just need a little bit of medical intervention.
A little bit of juice.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, cool. So then you were pregnant on your birthday. How many weeks were you then, do you reckon?
Oh, it was like 2. It was really early. However many, like 2-3 weeks.
Okay, cool.
It would have been like the 7th. I think I got the transfer on the 8th or the 7th of November, and then my birthday's the 25th. So it was just a
couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So then tell us about your pregnancy experience. How was that for you?
Pretty not too bad. I was a bit sick, had some nausea, but I didn't have a lot of body changes to the point where I was like, this is out of control, uncomfortable, I feel fine. Like, everyone was like, you can't even tell you're pregnant for a very long time. And I felt pretty good. The hardest part for me, I had what's it called now? Hematoma.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not called that. It's called something else. On the uterus, essentially.
Ah.
It's called...
Like, not like a polyp or a cyst?
No, it's called I'll get back to that.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's like a hematoma on the placenta, which I found out because I had some bleeding, and they were like, "Oh, this is
not a clot." No. A hematoma on the placenta, where the placenta attached to the uterus. Interesting. Okay, sorry, continue.
And then, so they were like, you need to take it. It's 50-50 that you'll lose a pregnancy. So that was pretty scary for me because I was like, what do you, like, have I done something? You just start thinking all these things because I was bleeding, and every time you go to the toilet, you're like, is there blood? Is there blood? Is this going to be the time?
Awful.
Horrible. But then, so I just like looked up what I could do, and I found this vitamin that was apparently really good for reducing hematomas like that. I wish I had the information for you what it was. I can't remember for the life of me.
Yeah. A vitamin though.
Yeah, it was just like a bioceuticals. Yeah. Some kind of vitamin.
Wasn't vitamin K by any chance?
No.
Okay.
No, it was. Can't remember.
That's all right.
Yeah, so I started taking that, and then I was an exercise fanatic, like going to the gym in the lead up to this. I was busy gal, like 30 kilometres on the trot every day. And then I just was like...
4 a.m. treadmills was enough to say that.
Yeah, so true.
As soon as you said that, I was like...
a bit manic.
Yeah. Psycho.
Yeah. And now I look back, I'm like, psycho, what am I doing? Like, I want that sleep. Imagine that. So it was a really good lesson for me in you need to stop, you need to slow down, just take it easy for a minute. And that was probably only two months into the pregnancy.
Yeah,
okay. I was like, wow, this is early and I need to stop doing what I'm doing.
Yes. So you didn't experience much nausea at the start of your pregnancy?
Not until 12 weeks. 12 weeks came and I was like, no, 6 weeks. At 6 weeks till probably 20 weeks, I felt a little bit, it wasn't like super bad, but I definitely felt like just a bit gross. But nothing that I could, it was like when I ate eggs, I was like, oh, I need to vomit. And there was a couple of times that I would vomit throughout it, but it wasn't too bad, like it was manageable.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty cruisy and I was still doing everything that I wanted to do.
Still working.
Yep. I was working the whole time.
So good.
So I would say I had a pretty good pregnancy. I didn't have any major aches and pains. I started coming to yoga.
Yeah.
I was a very slack yoga person. I was like, I hate yoga. I was like, I can't, like I just can't. And I
remember looking at you. It's so funny. Sometimes I look around the room and we're all like meditative and so many women are just like in the zone and you were always just... looking around, kind of like, what the fuck are we doing here?
So slow.
Jackie, close your eyes. Better tape.
Zen. I was like, I can't. Just like, and it wasn't because I don't enjoy it. It's because I'm so bad at it and I don't like being bad at things. So I'm like, the fact that everyone can bend down, touch their toes, and they were like 37 weeks pregnant, and here's me 20 weeks pregnant with no belly, and I'm like, can't, I was like, this is dumb. I can't do this. And then I'd like look around and I was like, is everyone else as uncomfortable as me laying down? I've even got a big belly. Why am I so uncomfortable? Anyway, so yeah, that was a very big learning lesson in just do the hard things.
Yeah, be bad at something. Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay to be bad at something. I'm very humbling because I was like, I guess you just have to be prepared to be bad at things when it comes to giving birth and raising children.
And motherhood, yes.
Yeah.
You constantly feel like you're failing, right?
Yeah. Just
and
like,
I think,
am I doing a good job here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's such a great point, and that is something that's really great to get used to, is being okay with not being great at things. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that was a good lesson that your pregnancy probably needed to teach you going forward.
Yeah. I still want to be good at things, though. But I'm better. I will go to yoga. I won't go to yoga. I don't have time for it now. I'm a busy child. But it definitely has stopped me from, I guess, being obsessive about a lot of things, like going and just like taking a step back and kind of chilling out about things, which has been good.
So good.
And then I did the birth workshop with my mum. My mum learnt a lot. She was like, I can't believe the things that they do now. I'm like, thank goodness you came to this. Yeah. And then I was still like, oh, goodness.
So your mum was going to be your birth support, hey? Yeah.
Which I was nervous about because I was like, how are you going to go? I feel like you're going to freak out. And she did. Love her dearly. Great support. She was wonderful, but she did have a hard time. Love you, Mum, if you're watching. She was as good as a male partner, if not worse. Anyway, rag on my beautiful mother. So did the birth workshop. I was doing all the things that mentally I thought I needed to, and I was feeling pretty good going into the birth. I was having all the ultrasounds, and they were saying, your baby's big, it's growing well. I had extra ultrasounds because I was older. I think, like over 30 or 30. 35. So they were like extra scan. I was like, I am not geriatric. I am younger than some of these people.
Oh my gosh.
But so lots of scans, and I had like a couple of feet, like reduced movement scans and things like that. Yeah.
And the scans were consistently showing
a big baby. Yeah. Consistently. And I was like, where is this big baby? Like, and my midwives were like measuring me. And then one of my midwives was like, you're actually measuring really small. But all the ultrasounds are saying you're big. And she's like, I just don't understand how you're measuring. I was one of the scans, the measurements, I was 2 centimetres smaller than what I should have been. She was like, this is just not right. And I just trusted the process, and I was like, oh, and then all the obstetricians were like, you need to go in, you're going to need to be induced at 39 weeks, and I was like...
They would have been thinking big baby, IVF, advanced maternal age.
Yep, ticking all the boxes for risk, and then my midwives were like, the risk is literally 0.1% on top of the 1% risk that there already is. They're like, the risk isn't huge. You'd really, like, they make it sound like it's a really scary risk, but it's actually not. And they're like, just wait. You've got this, just wait. And I was like, okay. And then I didn't feel really stressed or pressured because they were really good about being like, it's your choice. It's in your hands whenever you want to go. And then I think when it got to 40 weeks, I was like, right now I've had enough. Like, I'm ready to just... get this baby out. Like, I've had enough now, because I think I wasn't in pain and it wasn't hard. Like, I was still, I could lay any way I wanted in bed and it felt good, but I was, you get to the point.
Done.
Yeah, you're like, I don't want to be pregnant. I want to meet this baby.
Because can I ask quickly, throughout the pregnancy and I guess even beforehand, obviously like it was a long time coming, how was your perception of birth? What were your thoughts originally about birth? Because I know you're really good friends with Nat, who everyone knows about because they love her podcast as well. So you were petrified about birth. You were scared.
Yeah. I think I was fearful of the pain of it. Like, I just thought I don't understand what the pain's like, and the fact that no one can really tell you really gets me, because I was like, I wanted to research. Like, I read everything. I wanted to know everything.
Yes.
I didn't want to be surprised by what was happening to me. So I was like, I need to have the information. But yeah, I was definitely, I think the thing that I was scaredest of was tearing, weirdly. I just was like, I don't want to tear. That's going to be so painful.
Yes.
And I don't know why that was in my head, but that was my biggest fear of going into birth.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't feel scared about other things, just the pain of it.
Yes.
And how I would handle that, I think, which probably translated to some things that happened in my birth, actually, when I think about it. Like, interesting. It's nice that this is bringing up these things. Yeah, so I felt, I know I was scared of the pain, but also I felt like it was a challenge that I wanted to, I was like, it's just the end goal was more important to me.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I actually had a conversation with Nat in my pregnancy, and I was like, I think she said to me, I just can't imagine you as a pregnant person. And I was like, me either. And this is the weird part, because I can imagine myself as a mother, but the whole process to get there.
Yes.
I had I just didn't have any, like, I didn't think about, I have to be pregnant and give birth to get to that point.
Yeah.
I was just like, end goal, end goal, end goal. The
Very
whole time.
cool.
Yeah. So it was interesting for me to go through the journey to actually become a mother when I didn't picture that. I was like, I didn't think about having to be pregnant for 9 months. I knew, obviously I understood the process.
Absolutely.
Of having to do it,
yeah. See, it's so funny. I had this realization like last year or something, and it just sounds ridiculous even coming out of my mouth, but I remember this moment where, like, I think I was working at the hospital, and there was lots of, women I were working with that, just didn't give two hecks about birth, didn't really do much in the sense of birth prep and stuff like that, which is so fine. And I just remember going through this phase of being like, so not understanding why would you not? That's the whole point kind of thing. Why would you not put the effort into your pregnancy and your birth experience and, try to let things be all flowy and normal and natural and whatever? And to me, in my mind, I was thinking that's the whole point. And then I had this like finger click moment of realizing they do it to become a mum and to have the kid. The process is just an inevitable annoyance to some people, and that's fine. And I just thought, like, fuck, I just totally forgot about that whole side of it, that a lot of people do it for the child at the end, obviously. Yeah. Like, that's the most fucking obvious thing ever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Some people don't enjoy being pregnant.
Or birth or have any value towards, natural birth or anything like that, which is fine. And I just thought, like, gosh, that's such an interesting realization.
Yeah, it's crazy the disparity of people. Like, you go from having people that absolutely could go, like, they do not care about it. Yes. And then the people that are like, I must know everything. And it's interesting because I felt like I sat in the middle. Like, I was like, I want to know everything. But also the pregnancy part, I don't care to be completely useless for 9 months. Like, I just don't want to be like that. Because I feel really physically capable and strong and fit and healthy. And then I was like, all that goes away. It's like, do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
In a sense, you lose that ability of your body, and you don't know when you're going to get that back technically, or if you'll get that back to the
I know what you mean.
Yeah, so that felt hard for me to relinquish that, I guess, physical health.
Fair call.
Yeah.
Such a fair call.
But yeah, so it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it
fantastic.
Was okay.
It was okay. It was all good. Okay, so you were 40 weeks pregnant, and then and you were talking about induction.
So they said they were just like pushing induction, and then I said to one of my midwives, I was like, okay, at I think 41, I'm going to be done, like 41, and it fell on a Friday, and she was like, okay, come in on the Sunday night, and we'll induce you if you still feel like that. And you haven't. And my baby would be very, very, very active for a day or 2 days, and then it would have a day where it just wouldn't move. And I'm like, and then when I said this to my midwives, they're like, it doesn't sit great with us. Like, we don't love it when babies do that because we just never know what they're doing. They're like, he could just be resting, or you just don't know what's happening. And I was like, in my mind, all of the things were stacking up on top of each other, and I was like, okay, so I'll get to 41, and if I haven't done, I'll get the induction, because I understand the intensity of induction, really. Or that was one part that I was like, I know it's not great and it leads to interventions that I don't want to have, but also I was like, for all the journey that I've been on to get to this point, like all the intentional choices I've made, and it falls all on me to make this choice. If I wait and something goes wrong, I will never forgive myself. So I was like, just get the induction at 41, like make the choice. So I did. And I went in on the Sunday night and I got the Cook's catheters, which I didn't know anything about until I got there. I was like, oh, what is this? Like, what's happening with me? Here I am Googling
As a side note, you left the birth workshop just at the induction part with the intention that you said, I'm not going to get an induction. I don't need to know this. Yeah.
At the wonderful birth workshop that I learnt so much, the most integral part of it, I needed to leave 10 minutes early. And I didn't get, and you were like, come and see me and we will do that part of it. And I was like, yeah. And then in my mind, I'm like, I don't need to do the induction. I'm not going to get one. Damn it. Good lesson. Stay for the whole workshop.
Meanwhile, Amy's like, that's what they all say.
Yeah. You knew. You knew way better than me.
No, it's fine.
Anyway, good life lesson. Yeah. See things through. So I probably would have learnt about it at the workshop. But yeah, so I had the induction on the Sunday night, and it was an interesting experience. Yeah. So I got the full whack of the induction of the filling the balloons up, and then I went to the maternity ward to spend the night. I had the choice to go home or to spend the night, and I was like, I'm here with all my stuff. I'm staying. Like, I'm not going home. And I didn't think anything bad would happen. I just thought it's easier. I don't have to go back and forth, whatever. And there's a nice little room down the end that was quite quiet. And I was like, this is perfect. This is like a little vacay.
Yeah.
It wasn't a vacay. The catheter made me feel terrible because it made my body go into shock pretty much. I was diarrhea, vomiting, feeling like contractions, timing them because I was like, this is insane. At this point, I was like, what is going on? And I was walking down the corridor to get a hot pack, and one of the nurses saw me and they were like, are you okay? And I was like, no, like I've just been vomiting, like I'm really sick. I must have looked just terrible. And they were like, we'll come and see you in a second. And they took some out, I think 5 ml of each balloon, and then they were like, if you don't feel like you've got period pain in the next hour, you need to press the button. And I didn't press the button. I was on the toilet with diarrhea, and she came in an hour and a half later and she's like, are you okay? I was like, I'm still not okay, no. And she was like, take some more out. So they took some more out. And in my mind I was like, this is pointless. Is this going to stop this from working? And then I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to be back. It's like, no, this has been for nothing.
Yeah.
Like all of this. So I was kind of a little bit on the edge, but I was also like, no, I feel gross. Like I'm never going to sleep if I don't get this. But in your mind, you're also like, is this what birth is? Like, do I just have to deal with this pain?
Yeah.
So I got some more out, and then I got some sleep, and my midwife came and got me at 6 o'clock in the morning and took me over to the birth suite, and broke my waters at 6 o'clock.
Amazing.
Yep. So that went well, and then she left me for a couple of hours just to see if my body would start doing its thing.
Yeah.
And it didn't. I just felt completely normal. And I think she checked me and I was like 2 centimetres dilated. So they started the drip at 8 o'clock, and then 10:30 I was just sitting in the birth suite on the little ball, bouncing around. Like, I was like, what are you doing this time?
Yeah.
I was like, when is this meant to start? And then she's like, you'll feel it when it's ready. Just like keep hanging out. I'm on my phone, distracting myself. And then 10:30 came, and I definitely started to feel things, and I was like, oh, yeah, I can feel the tightness. And I was like, oh, yeah, this feels like last night. That's what it felt like. It felt like when I was having the contractions the night before, I could breathe through it, and it felt, I was like, I can do this. Like, if this is what it is, I can do it. The night before made me feel like I could do it if I needed to do it. It was painful and I felt gross, but also I was like, if that's what birth is in the contractions, I can breathe through. Like I was using all my techniques, breathing, swaying.
Fantastic.
All the things that you taught us in the workshop. And I was like, I'm doing this for the induction. Like, this isn't even birth. Why am I using these techniques already? And I had a TENS machine and a birth comb.
Fantastic.
And I was like, right, at 10:30, I was like, get the TENS machine on because I need it. They were starting to ramp up. It was about 11 o'clock. And I was on, and then at 11 o'clock, it just hit me, like I hit a wall, and I laid on the bathroom floor and just was writhing in pain. And the TENS machine was doing that. I was like, get this thing off me. That is the most infuriating thing that's on my body. I was like, why isn't that working? It's not working at all. I was like, everyone swears by these things. Like, why? I'm just getting annoyed by it. And I said to the midwife, I was like, please get this thing off me. And she was like, oh, yep, okay. Like, got it off me. And then I had the birth comb, and I was like, I just remember throwing it. I was like, this stupid thing. Like, why aren't these tools? Why aren't my tools working for me? I was like, oh, I don't. And I think I got frustrated at that point that I couldn't control the pain, and I couldn't control what my body was doing.
Yeah.
And all the tools that I thought were going to be the breadwinners for me were not working, and I was kind of thrown by it because I was like, you know, when you've got a plan in your head of what you think is going to happen, and you can't for birth, and that's what they say. You can never plan it, and you never know the pain or the feeling or the journey
what's going to help
go on.
you. It's so hard.
Yeah, and everyone's like, get in the shower. Do you want to get in the bath? And I was like, can't think of anything worse than being in the bath. And then, like, can't think of anything worse than anyone touching me. I was like, please turn the light off and just let me crawl around the bathroom. I was like crawling up to the toilet because I was like, I'm going to poo, I'm going to spew, I need to be on the ground. Like, couldn't. And then I was like on the toilet holding onto the railing, like trying to poo, trying to spew, didn't know what was going on. Like in a place, like really in a place for me. And it felt hard because I generally felt like I had a pretty good handle on it because I'd done all the research, done the clock, like, you know, you've done everything. And I was doing the techniques and the breathing, but I was just so far gone. And I remember hearing a doctor or a nurse or someone come in and say to my midwife, is she okay? And my midwife was like, yep, she's fine. Leave her alone. She doesn't want anything. And I was like, yes. Like, yeah, good job.
Good.
Yeah, so I remember that moment really clearly and thinking, she's got my back. Like, I can do this because she's got my back. Feeling. And then I thought, and that was the point where I peeled myself up off the bathroom floor and I was like, right, I need to get to the bed and, like, get out of this because maybe being in here is exacerbating this feeling. And, like, if I take myself out of this situation mentally, maybe I can do a bit, like, you know, rewrite this. I couldn't. I got to the bed and I was still vomiting. I passed out from the pain, and at that point I was like, I can't do this. And my midwife was like, I'll check you and see where you're at. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea because if I'm further along than I think, maybe that'll give me a little bit of a little push.
Burst of motivation,
yes. And I was 4 centimetres and it was 11:30 and I was like, I can't. And she said, try the gas. And I thought, I'm not real good with gas. For some reason, the green whistle just came into my memory and I was like, I don't think I'm good with things like that, but I'll try the gas.
I can't control myself, then I make myself pass out.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know what I need, so give me the gas. So I tried the gas and zero pain was taken away from the gas. Like, I just felt sick instantly, gave me a head spin. I think I passed out again. Meanwhile, my mum passed out.
Oh, was she quite distraught with it all?
Well, seemingly not, but then I remember looking up, my midwife was trying to catch my mum at the same time as hold my hand, and I was like, go and sit down, like, just go and take care of yourself. Yeah, she got very lightheaded a couple of times during the process. So,
wow.
But yeah, pulled it together. She pulled it together well. I will give credit to her. But yeah, so the gas wasn't working and I was like, no, I need an epidural. And in my mind, I cried and cried because I was like, I do not want an epidural because I just feel like in a sense, I've failed myself because I was like, I should be able to handle this. I was like, Nat could do this. Like, why could my friend do this and I can't?
And your midwife had looked after both of you.
And she was just like, Nat didn't have an induction, like trying to like pep talk me. But in my mind, I was like, no, like why could she do this and I can't?
That's the worst feeling.
Yeah, just stupid competitive.
Yeah.
Because it's completely
and having
journey.
like high expectations of yourself,
and feeling and just like I felt like I was letting myself down by having it, like taking the easy way out.
Yeah.
But I decided that I wouldn't let it be the easy way out. I was like, I'll get the epidural. So he came in at 11:30 and the first one didn't work and he said sit still and I was like, oh, you're joking. Like
Yes.
For the last, 2 hours, I haven't been able to sit still in pain. And now you're telling me to sit still to put a needle in my back. Awesome. So I was holding the bed, took a big suck of the gas. I was like, surely this will help. But yeah, so the first one didn't work. He had to leave, come back and do the whole process again 15 minutes later.
Yeah.
Which was hectic. I was like, I just can't handle, I was like, I don't think I can handle sitting still to get you to do this again. I just couldn't mentally cope with it.
It's awful getting them in, for sure.
Yeah. But then once it was in, I was just
so kind.
I was on a holiday. I was like eating snacks, I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I felt amazing. It was weird because I couldn't feel my body, but also I was like, I needed a break. When she said you're 4 centimeters and I felt like that, I was like, I physically know I can't do this. If I'm passing out, I can't give birth. I can't be the present mother that I want to be in that moment if I'm not physically capable of being like that.
Yes.
So I was like,
and it just went 0 to 100, didn't it?
From 10 to 11.
Yeah. How often do you reckon you were contracting? How we talk about 3 contractions in 10 minutes or whatever.
I think it got to, it was pretty, at 11, it was hard and fast. And that's why they were I think it was I was having, I can't put numbers.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
It was a lot though.
It was fucking intense.
My midwife was like, yeah, look, you're going through it. You're in the thick of it and you're having a lot of contractions. And I was like, yeah. Because my body's always been really sensitive to any kind of drug and stimulus, always. And I was always a little bit on the fence about having that because I know what my body's like.
Which has been proven throughout this whole journey, right, of the conception stuff.
Yeah.
The balloon.
Being hyperstimulated, all of it. My body just goes ping with drugs. Yeah. Even alcohol. If I'm so sensitive to alcohol, so my body, my body knows what it can handle and what it can't. It doesn't like things that it doesn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the epidural went well and I felt good. So that probably the effects started at 12 and then at 4 p.m. my midwife was like, all right, we're going to check you now. And she's like, you're 10 centimeters, you're ready to push. And I was like, go time. The whole time in the 4 hours I was laying in the bed eating dried mango. I just remember dried mango. And I was like, oh, I can still feel my left leg. It felt like pins and needles, but I was like, it's heavy, but I'm moving it. I was mentally looking at my toes and it was almost, how people lose their limbs and they're teach themselves to feel like a phantom limb. I was like, right, I should be able to feel my body because it's there and my nerves are still connected, but there's a blocker, something's blocking it, but I can, I'm still attached, what I mean? It's still my body.
Still my body.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to keep control of this and not lose my ability to give birth the way I wanted to in some way. Good. I was like, I'm not going to let my story be the one that was taken over. I'm going to keep control. So I kept mentally really focusing on my legs, my feet. I just remember looking at my toes the whole time being like, yep, moving my toes. And it would be the smallest movement. I'd be like, oh. But then I'd move them and I was like, oh, I can't feel that, but can I? And so I was like,
yes.
Yeah, watching it and then feeling the sensation without being able to feel it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was really interesting and really cool. But
yes.
So my left leg, I still had full physical control over. It was heavy.
Amazing.
But it was lifting weights and I was like, oh, it's so heavy. But I could still feel it. And then my right leg was numb, but I was using my arms to just move my leg around because I was like, I don't want anyone to have to do it for me. I can do this. So, yeah, at 4 o'clock when I started pushing, I, went onto my side and then tried all fours and I was like, oh, I don't quite feel capable of that. So I knew my limits. I was like, I can't. I think I said to my midwife, I want to stand up. She's like, you can't. You're attached to everything. You can't stand up. And I was like, I reckon I can. And she's like, you can't stand up. I was like, okay, well, get me
Babe,
on all
that's
fours.
a hard no.
She's like, I'm not having you fall over. I was like, okay, fine. So I went on all fours and then I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I probably can't stand up. And I think I just laughed a lot of that hour through. I had a student midwife in there and I was like, I'm so sorry that you have to see my poo. I've never met you. I'm so sorry. But she was lovely and awesome. And
student midwives are the best.
Yeah, I would highly recommend them to everyone. It was so good. And yeah, so I was just keeping the energy light in the room, but also really focusing on which is what I do. I think when I'm like up against it, I like to keep the humour in it, or like,
yes,
lightness in the situation, because it was quite intense.
Totally.
So I was making jokes and doing all the things that I usually do. And then, I think 45 minutes I was kind of contracting and pushing, and I could feel my contractions still. And I was really focusing on, they were saying, we'll tell you when you're having a contraction so you can push. And I was like, nah, I'm going to feel when I'm having a contraction, and I'm going to tell you when I'm going to push.
Yes.
Because I don't understand why I shouldn't be able to feel that. So I really tuned in, and I think I stopped cracking as many jokes, and I was like, okay, I'm going to feel this. And so I did. I tuned into my body, and I could feel the contractions, and I was like, right, I'm ready to push. And I was like, I'm pushing. And they were like, oh, yep, okay, yep, you're right. Go, you're contracting. And I was like, yep. And then I think at about 4:45, had the mirror so I could see what I was doing, and I was like holding my leg, and I was like, I don't need stirrups, like just let me do this. And then he got stuck at about 4:45, and the obstetrician came in, and they're like, if you don't get him out in the next couple of pushes, we're going to need to give you an episiotomy. And I was like, no, I'm not having intervention, I can do this. Yeah. And that was the moment when my midwife had said to me, like earlier in the day when I was on the floor, she's got it, she's fine, leave her alone. I was like, I looked at her and I was like, I don't want it, let me get this baby out. And I was just like tuned in, and I could focus. I remember from the workshop, I was like, push your energy down in your body. And I could feel like I was just like, you bubble with energy, like you've got so much. It's like, it's your maternal instinct, it's just like crazy energy. Yes. And I was like, push that down, like push it down, feel your baby moving through your pelvis. And I was like, I could feel it. I couldn't feel it, but I could feel, and mentally I knew where he was. Yes. So I just pushed, and I was like, give me 2 more pushes. And she gave me 2 more pushes, and his head came out. And amazing. Yeah, by 5 o'clock he was out.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Isn't that incredible? That was just such a good, when you messaged me that initially after birth, that you still had the control of your body and the connection with your body. I just thought that was so amazing. And we talked about this before the podcast, but just you kind of going into that epidural with the thought of, this isn't me handing over the responsibility. This isn't me just fully like, kind of putting my hands up and saying, do what you want with me. I am still in connection with my body. I'm still going to feel where my baby is. I'm still going to feel like, I know you were saying you started laying on one side and then you gave a few pushes and you're like, okay, I felt something shift in my pelvis. I feel like I need to move to the other side. Yeah. Just keeping your mind open to that rather than, often if we're like, I don't fucking know, I'm not even paying attention, your body's probably subtly able to tell you sometimes what's going on, that you can still get some sort of inclination as to where to go, which you just did so well. Yeah. And a side note I wanted to say actually with your epidural is that you didn't have the option, which is often what I tell mamas to not give themselves the option, which I think was an intentional thing, which was a great call, is with the epidural, you get the background dose, and then you can have the option of pressing the button to get a booster dose, and you can do that every 20 minutes or whatever it is. And you didn't ever press the button. No. You just had this background dose the whole time. And I think that is definitely the reason that you still had somewhat of a connection and somewhat of movement to be able to get into all fours and left to right, etc., rather than if you were just like so dosed up on this epidural, you were going to be so much more disconnected from your body. And
not have that, I guess you kind of let go of the control of your experience because you're just pumping yourself with something synthetic. Or, and you could, that all I needed was that little bit. I mean, the background dose is enough to make you not be able to feel a lot of things.
Totally.
But also, I just needed that to take the edge off what I was doing. And I think if you use... Sometimes people really get scared about using the tools that are available to them in birth, especially like the epidural or things like that, because they're... I guess it's not seen as natural or, that you're in control. But I think if you use the tools within a scope of what you're comfortable with.
Yes.
That's what it rewrote that whole experience in my brain, because I was like, it's not the worst thing in the world. Like the epidural helped me to have, and I feel like I had a positive birth. Like I am so happy with the birth that I had. Like I wouldn't have changed.
Absolutely.
Even though it was really kind of hard at the start, I felt like I still experienced the pain of it, because I was like, I've felt that pain. I know what the pain feels like. Mm-hmm. And then I had this beautiful experience where I was connected to my body without the pain. So I was like, wow, I feel all this, and this is like so nice that I could give birth, and I felt in control of giving birth. Like I felt like it was, I pushed. I didn't get him taken out of me. I birthed him.
Yes.
So I feel like that was a pretty cool end to the story of it.
It was fucking cool. Yeah.
Rather than feeling like the doctors birthed my baby, I felt like I birthed my baby.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Feeling I'm getting goosebumps just you saying that. Feeling the contractions, being able to actually push, feel where your baby is in the pelvis, feel the movement, the rotation, and have that, that kind of belief in yourself, and the fact that you're opening your mind to the fact that you can feel is just amazing. On that note, do you mind speaking to what we were talking about before, about even though you hadn't birthed before, you knew something was up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I had the induction at the start, I was like, this doesn't feel right. Like I was like, this isn't how it's meant to feel. I knew it wasn't how it was meant to feel. And then even the synthetic, when I had the drip, I was like, when I was in the pain on the bathroom floor, I was like, this isn't what birth is meant to be. It's not meant. I was like thinking in my mind, I was like, of all the people that you see, I know like the movies you experience, right, or the videos or the podcasts that you've listened to, you don't hear people incapacitated on a bathroom floor, not in control of their body. I was like, this isn't right. Something's not right about this. And I don't feel right inside me at the moment. Like I felt out of control. I felt terrible. Terrible. Out of my mind, out of control, and I wanted so desperately to get some of that back, because I was like, I don't want this to be my experience, because if that was my experience, it wouldn't have been a positive one, and I would have been really... But yeah, you do... It's amazing, because I didn't think I'd be a person that could be in tune with my body. I was like, I'm bad at yoga. I'm not like... I was like...
Or intuitive.
I was... And when, like, I'd go to yoga and you'd be like, okay, feel certain parts of your body and feel like how that moves, and I was like... I just feel pain. Like I can't stretch that way. I was like, this doesn't feel like I'm not good. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
I wasn't like, I'm so in tune with my body that I can feel when something goes wrong. And then that moment that it hits you where you are in tune, that you're like, oh, I do know my body. Like my body doesn't like this. It might not be in the way that you think that you're going to feel it or react to it or respond to it or see what you are capable of, but your body does tell you if you're listening. Like it really does go, this doesn't feel good for you, so do something different. And that's why I got up off the floor, because I was like, this doesn't feel good. Like this isn't how it's meant to be.
And that's why you then ask for the epidural. You're like, something's not right.
Yeah.
This induction is cooked for me.
Yeah. My body is hating these drugs. It's hating this gas. I need something else. Help me.
Yes.
My body was screaming to me to help it. Like I was so out of control, and I remember feeling every ounce of my being was like, help me. Like I think I screamed that from the floor. I was like, help me, like help me.
Wow.
And then I was saying it to myself. I wasn't saying it to anyone else because I didn't want anyone else near me. But I was
help me, but stay the fuck away from me.
Yeah, do not touch me, do not turn the light on.
I feel a bit contradictory right now.
I'm pretty sure I asked for ice chips, and I got like 4 ice chips in my mouth and I was like spitting them across the room. I was like, 1 ice chip, I don't need so many in my mouth. Like, what are you doing? You're trying to drown me. I'm trying to give birth and you're like drowning me with ice chips. Spat the ice chips across the room. I was like, my poor midwives.
Oh my gosh.
But
that's hectic. I loved that you said that, because I feel like you have the confidence, which is so funny, because as you say, like, I hear what you're saying, and like you wouldn't have thought that you were the type that were tuned into your body or tuned into your intuition, but it was so loud to you during birth. And you had complete belief and trust in it, which I just thought was so cool, and confidence. And I just wanted to say that for, peeps at home, first-time mamas, you were a first-time mama. You'd never experienced labour in this, state before. but you knew that something was wrong.
Yeah.
You knew that this wasn't right. You knew that this wasn't agreeing with you. And I hear mamas say this all the time. I just knew that something was wrong with me or my baby, or I wanted it this certain way. I wanted to say no to that. And it's not necessarily backed by logic. And it's not necessarily like you've done it before. You don't actually know that, this contraction isn't what, a normal labor contraction feels like, but you know. And I just love that point so much, because I think you need to trust that you do know and you do have confidence in it. And, all of our mums and grandmas and blah, blah, blah have birthed, and it all comes down through that, genetics and intuition and wisdom and all that stuff, that you can trust in that, even though it's your first time.
And you don't know. You honestly cannot believe in yourself enough to know what it feels like to have that moment where you do know. Like you can go the whole thing, you can be scared, or you can be apprehensive, or you could feel like you have no idea of what it's going to be like. And then you get to the point and your body just goes, oh, yeah, I do know. Listen to me, because I know exactly what's happening right now.
Yes.
And I guess that's the start of motherhood. Like, that's the start of motherhood.
Absolutely.
It's the decisions that you just like, I just have to go with my first instinct, or I have to go with where I'm coming from in that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just did a meditation with the mamas yesterday. What was it, Sunday? So both the postnatal mamas and the pregnant mamas about, like you are in charge of so many decisions of this tiny little vulnerable human that you care the most about in the whole entire world. Yeah. It's a massive responsibility,
so
right?
So
scary. And then you're constantly conflicted with like logic and podcasts and health professionals and all these other external opinions, and it can be so hard to trust yourself. And I just think it is really important to continually tune into your intuition and let yourself be quiet so that it can speak to you and you can be making these fucking massive decisions.
I think that's why as mothers we have to go through birthing the child, is so that we can learn to trust ourselves before we have to actually trust ourselves with them.
Yes.
So it's like you can't fully trust yourself until you go through an experience like that, because it's just, there's nothing that brings you into yourself or gives you a better realization of your capability than birthing a child. In whatever way that you do, like whether it be a cesarean, vaginal, whatever kind of birth you have. I really feel like that whole process is what sets you up to be a mother for the child.
So true. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. So what's your reflection on that whole experience?
I would say that no matter what you go through in the lead up, in through the birth, in whatever your preconception of birth is, obviously everyone tells you can never prepare for anything. But you have control of your body and you have control of your choices the whole way. And it's really important to tune into it and listen. Your body will scream at you. It screamed at me.
Help me.
And I think just everyone says it. Everyone's like, surrender to what happens during your birth and it will be easier for you. Like, don't push against it. And I think I pushed against it and I pushed against it. And I pushed against my body by inducing it early. And then I surrendered to something that I didn't want to do in having an epidural, and I think it was the best part of my birth because it gave me the ability to be in control of my body and my baby and my birth story. So I think it was a positive outcome, even though it wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be. Yeah. And even though I had some really hard times in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and surrendering to the plan, changing exactly as you did, comes with that as well. So good.
And not beating yourself up when that happens. It's just part of the journey for you.
Yes. How has motherhood been for you? Obviously, you're by yourself. You're going about it. You've got an amazing support network.
Yeah.
Shout out to your amazing friend looking after him last minute today.
Yeah.
Legend.
Thank goodness, or he would be everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been busy. Everyone says, how are you going? Like, are you okay? You must be so... And I'm like, I'm so fine. I think it's hard to say this to people that have partners, but I see a lot of people with partners, they rely on the partner to be doing that, and when it's not done, they're like, well, why didn't you do that? Or you did it a different way. I know that I have to do everything, and I know I have a routine, and I have like a process that I go through, and we get it done. I have amazing people that come and help me and do things with me and him and give me 5 minutes. But I've got like, I'll put him in his... I didn't have a cot. I was like, floor bed. He's going to be fine. It'll be fine. And then he started crawling at 3.5 months, and I was like, cot. Like, I need a jail. I need a jail because I need to be able to have, like, a moment where, but I've never, like, put him in any kind of container. He's just been, like, free roamer for his whole life. And that's been, I think, good for him and me in, like, the trust that I know where he is and what he's doing, but also I know my eyes need to be on him all the time. I don't have to rely on someone else. And I think that it becomes kind of hard when you have to put two opinions and conflicting ideas and schedules and things into things. And I've just been like, I've just got to do it. So I do it and I get it done. And even Nat said to me, she's like, sometimes you just not want to do bath time. Is there every night where you're like, I just don't want to do bath time? And I'm like, nah, because I just know I have to. Like, I just do it. So you just, it's a crazy mind shift where you just know that you've got to do the things so you get it done. Some days are hard. Like, some days I'm like, oh, I want to kill you.
Yes,
Not kill him, but you know what I mean?
know what you mean.
Some days you're like, oh, it's really challenging today. You're being really whingy, but I also have a very, I'm not going to say good baby because, you know, babies aren't good. Babies are babies. But I have a child who... No, he's understood the assignment. He understands that I'm a single mum, so he's like, I'm going to make your life hectic, but also he's a pretty good sleeper. He's not so whingy, so I can't really complain. Like, I think there could be a very different journey if you had a child that had, like, some challenges or...
Yeah, or a colicky baby, honestly.
I was like,
really
he fed from the day dot. Like, he was attached and he is...
Breastfeeding. That was my next question. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So he was
I
breastfed.
had a massive oversupply of donated milk. Like, just...
Legend. Fantastic.
Yeah, so that's been crazy. But, yeah, he handled the letdown like a little champion. Yeah, so I love breastfeeding, and I find it really a nice way to connect with him, but also it's like I can't do it in public because I'm still spraying everywhere. And it's like, what are we, 7 months down the track?
Wow.
Like, so much milk.
How often is he breastfeeding still?
I just on demand. I don't...
Yeah, on demand. Yeah. Is he eating at all?
Yeah. So
okay.
Champion eater, loves his food, grunts when he sees food. He's like, he loves it,
great.
takes a spoon. Yeah.
That's quite soon to be. Like, he's adapted quickly.
Oh, yeah.
When did you start him?
5.5 months. Because he was sitting unassisted at, I think, 4.5 months. He was pushing himself, crawling, pushing himself up to sit. Like, by 5 months, like, he was so ready.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't need to, developmentally, you are.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just had one of these children that was physically quite capable.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Fascinating. Yeah, cool. I love that breastfeeding's been so amazing for you.
Yeah, it's been, and I didn't know how it would go. But
were you, like, excited for it, or was there any difficulty at the start? Or
I had not one moment of difficulty with it.
Far out.
I did. Yeah, I know. So lucky. Like, I think I had, like, a sore nipple for one day, and I was like, well, that's kind of sore. But
that never happens.
No, I know. Like,
love that.
And that's the other thing. Like, I'm sure there's, like, would have been so much harder if I had some more challenges in it. But yeah, I got a baby that could handle, because obviously with a huge supply and let down like that, you would just be so scared your baby was going to be so gassy. And he did get gassy, but he dealt with it very well.
What a legend.
I'd be very worried to have a little tiny baby that couldn't deal with the milk supply. It would be really hard. But yeah.
That reminds me.
Yeah.
Big part of why we were induced was because he was huge on scans.
Yes.
How big was he at birth?
Very average, very small.
Very
He was 3.5 kilos, so pretty average, 53 centimetres, and his head circumference was in the 4th percentile, like tiny head. Thank you, baby.
Yes.
But yeah, so they were, my midwife was like, I knew you were measuring small. Like, there's no way, like, if they had induced you and his head circumference is in the 4th percentile at 41 weeks, can you just imagine the story we would have been telling if you had have come in for an induction at 39 weeks? Like, you need to, and I was like, I didn't trust myself at that point necessarily, but I trusted them. And I think building that relationship with the midwives was really helpful in being able to trust them and knowing, because obviously I'm a first-time mum and all the decisions were on me, and I was like, I've come this far. What if something goes wrong at this point? But also I'm not going to just throw in the towel that early. So, yeah, he was very average for a baby they were saying he was in like the 99th percentile in every scan they were doing. So,
yeah, God, it's so
with a
hard.
huge belly, and he didn't have a huge belly. Every scan they were like, oh, his belly's huge. And I'm
You know
like,
what's cool actually is that recently at the hospital we don't even look at the belly circumference anymore. We don't take that into consideration when diagnosing a big baby. We only take into consideration the actual weight, which I thought was really fascinating and
this fascinating
positive.
Because all through my pregnancy they were like, the belly's huge, and I'm like, what does that mean? Like, why is his belly so big? Is there a problem? But
so crazy.
Average baby from never trust the scans.
It's so hard.
I mean, scans are good for so many things, but also you kind of just need to, it's one of those things, you need to listen to your body. They can't be all right.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to add regarding your birth experience, motherhood, pregnancy?
I think...
Anything lingering on your mind?
No, I think... so obviously everyone's journey is different, but I honestly believe that the preparation that you go into for your birth is so important.
Amazing.
It's really hard to go into something that I feel like changes your life so much completely unprepared. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know anything and you just go, oh, I'm just going to see what happens when I get there, that's good in some regards because you don't have like a preconceived idea about what's happening. But also I think knowing your choices and knowing the process and knowing at least something about it and preparing yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually before you go into something like that is really important. So take the time to at least listen to a podcast or go to a birth course or do something for yourself so that you don't go in completely in the dark.
Yes.
Would be my opinion.
Valid. Completely valid. Well, because that actually perfectly brings me to my question of first time mama, what would you say is the most important thing to prepare for birth?
As in, like, what to do?
Yeah, it could be tangible, could be more, like, spiritual, could be whatever you reckon. Whatever comes to mind.
Well, I'm trying to think of an articulate way to say it because it's more of a feeling. It's more... The most important thing that I think you can do before birth is just trust yourself. Trust who you are, what you're there, like trust that you are meant to do what you're doing rather than trusting anyone else to tell you, because everyone else will tell you, everyone else will give you an opinion and tell you what things should and shouldn't look like. But at the end of the day, you know, like you know, and you don't know you know until you know.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, I think figuring out how, and it looks different for everyone, but figuring out how you can be okay with trusting yourself would be the most important thing that I would say.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more, Jackie. I absolutely love that. And that's so hard for a lot of us to do.
Yeah. I didn't know it until I was on the bathroom floor.
Yes.
That night or that day. I didn't know that I could trust myself until that moment. And I was like, listen to yourself.
Yes.
Because you're the only one that can get you through this. You and your baby are the only ones that can get you through it. And you do. You just get through it.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Oh, I've enjoyed this podcast so much.
It's been fun.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would absolutely love if you shared with someone else who would benefit from this information or on your social stories. If you are pregnant right now with no idea where to start and you are inundated with an abundance of information, our free 14-day pregnancy preparation short course is for you. There is a plethora of pregnancy meditations, pregnancy yoga flows, educational talks, physical movement videos, all to prepare for birth that you can access for free right now. The link is in the show notes. Now, if you are absolutely loving this podcast and the type of information we share, but you are not quite in the pregnancy or birth realm yet, I have some news for you that you are going to want to know. We have reached out to a bunch of the best preconception, pregnancy, and birth professionals to accumulate numerous tangible skills, tips, and advice to be sent straight to your inbox. If you would like to receive these fortnightly, then sign up on the newsletter link below. Talk to you soon.